Another common way to investigate our app while it's running is to use the Android log. We can add calls to different log methods that will write data to the Android system log. We can then view the log using a tool called Logcat while the app is running or at a later time. Even if our app crashes, the log remains, often holding helpful information about why the app crashed. We can't view the log from within our app, so we either need a separate app to view it, or we can view it from inside Eclipse using the Logcat view. Let's check it out. Let's start by logging some information from our app. Right now, we're showing a toast when our activity is first created. But our users don't really care about that, do they? Let's get rid of the toast and write it to the log instead. We write to the log using the log class and one of its static methods. These methods don't return anything, so we don't need to store them in a variable, just like we didn't need to when we chained the show method to our toast. Let's take a quick look at the documentation for the log class. The Android developer site tells us that we generally use one of 5 methods: log.v, d, I, w, or e. Why the funky letters? They stand for different levels of logging. E is for errors, W for warnings, I for info or informational entries, D for debugging entries during development, and V for verbose entries, which are used when we're troubleshooting something and want to spew as much information as possible to the log. Android does this so we can choose the appropriate level for each log entry. We can then filter only the log messages we care to look at when viewing the log. For example, we may be troubleshooting an error and only want to look at error messages. If we log information about the error with the log.e method, then we can filter the log to see just this information and ignore all the other log data from the other methods that we don't want to see. There are a few other methods available in the log class, like the WTF method. It stands for What a Terrible Failure. That's only for extreme errors though, and you'll probably never need to use it. Let's take a look at how to use these log methods. They're all used the same way, so let's use the debug method. Debug log entries are only used when we're running the app in debug mode, like when we run it from Eclipse. When we package it for an app store, debug log entries are actually ignored. On a new line, type log.d, and IntelliSense shows us that this method requires 2 parameters. The second parameter is the string data we want to write to the log, but the first parameter is what is known as a tag. The tag is used to identify the source of a log message. It usually identifies the class or activity where the log call occurs. Remember, the log contains log messages from all apps and the operating system. Supplying a tag lets us know where the message came from, and it also lets us filter by the tag in the Logcat view. So for the first parameter, in double quotes type main activity. Then add a comma, or hit tab. And then our log message will be, we're logging from the onCreate method. Okay. Let's organize our imports with Command-Shift-O or Control-Shift-O. And this time we're presented with a dialog box. There are 2 different classes named log, but they're in different packages. This is why having a unique package name is important. It lets us resolve name conflicts like this. We want the Android one, so double-click on it or hit enter. All right, let's check it out. Save and run the app. Okay, once it loads, let's take a look at the Logcat. In Eclipse, it should be at the bottom under the code editor. If it's missing, just go to Window, Show View, Other, expand Android, and double-click on Logcat. Scrolling through, we can see that there's a ton of information in this log. Let's look at how to filter it in 2 different ways. First, we used the debug or log.d method. There's a drop-down over here that shows all the different levels of logging. It works such that each level also includes messages from all the levels below it. So if we select error, for example, we'll only see error and assert messages. If we select debug, we'll get everything but the verbose messages. As long as we don't take too long, we should be able to find our message pretty easily. All right, there it is. Let's switch back to verbose and look at another method of filtering. In the text field at the top, we can see some help text that says, search for messages. Let's search for our tag by typing tag : main activity. The case doesn't matter here. Hey, there's our message. Okay, let's go back to our code. A common Android practice is to add a special member variable to our class called tag that we can use in our calls to the log methods. Scroll up, and here with our other member variables, on a new line, type public static final string tag. Let's set it equal to main activity and add our semicolon. Okay, let's slow down and take a look at this line. What are all these extra keywords for? Static final is just Java's way of saying, don't change this, ever. It means that this tag is a constant and it's always available and its value will never change. Let's make one more change to this line. We can change the name of our classes, so what would happen if we changed the name of main activity to some other activity? Our tag here is now misleading. Main activity doesn't match the class name. Not cool, tag. Instead of hard-coding the class name like we have here, we can use a special method to get the class name. Let's go back to main activity. And now delete main activity in the quotes and type, without quotes, main activity dot class dot get name. Now, I know what you're thinking. We just typed main activity again. But this time, since it isn't inside a string, Java's refactoring tools will recognize it and make the change. Or, if we change the name manually, Eclipse will detect the difference and now show an error like this. Okay, let's use this tag down below. Scroll back down, and here instead of main activity, let's use the tag member variable. Let's save and run and see how this looks. Okay, there's our app. And if we look at the log, here's our new log message. Now the tag shows the whole class and the package name together. That's okay, and it might be helpful in some cases, but usually the class name by itself is enough. Back in our code, let's change the getName method to getSimpleName, which doesn't include the package. Now let's save and run again. And there we go. It shows main activity again. Just like toasts, we can add these log method calls all over the place to log information about how our app is running. Logging can be incredibly helpful for troubleshooting problems with our apps. It's also a good way just to make sure everything is running like we expect it to when there isn't any visible effect on the screen. Android has helped us prioritize log events with different methods so we can concentrate on the log events we care about during development and filter out the non-essential logging from our final version of the app. Now let's go do our best Paul Bunyan impersonation on the Logging Code Challenge.